Welcome everyone to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Superman and Lois Season 1 Episode 3. It's called The Perks of Not Being a Wallflower. So full spoilers for the episode as always. And this one probably gives an example of what and I don't mean this in a bad way, but what a cheaper episode is going to be like, in that there was no Lex stuff.
A more typical episode.
No super villainy stuff, really, in terms of, there was no Lex in a power suit flying around with big battles. There was a big, set piece at the opening with Superman saving a bridge. But other than that, it was a fairly low-key episode in terms of the superpowers. And did have a bit more of the high school drama, a bit more of the town sort of reporter drama with Lois. And that's fine. So I guess maybe there's a test here as to whether or not it was still engaging. Does it measure up to the first two in terms of interest? And are we generally okay with, a reasonable number of the episodes probably falling into this kind of caliber?
I would expect probably about 2/3 overall to feel kind of more like this than the first couple.
That sounds probably about right. Maybe 50-50. But we have the high school stuff. We'll talk about that first, I guess, with Jordan kind of sign up for the football squad, mainly just because he wants to get back at the bullies for kind of picking on him, and does tackle one of them into oblivion.
Sends him flying.
To the point where you're kind of like, that feels like superpowers. I mean, he's a bit of a scrawny kid.
That looks a bit sketchy.
Because I think, at least something I think the actor did really well here, and maybe the wardrobe as well, just in terms of giving him clothes that were too big, but he did look kind of silly when he came out wearing the pads and all that. And I say that as someone who really doesn't know what they're supposed to look like, really, when they're on correctly.
I think it's more, we're used to seeing, the bare minimum of images we do have in our heads as Brits who don't watch much sport, who have of this is probably higher level athletes wearing stuff properly where it fits and they look quite big, and he is quite a scrawny little kid, right? And it all looks a bit oversized on him. Yeah,
that's probably his body language plus the wardrobe choices. And by choices, I just mean the size choices more than anything else. But he kind of realizes that he actually kind of likes playing, or more to the point, he likes that it kind of patches up some of these bridges where after he tackles the Sarah's boyfriend, although I think by this point in the episode he's already the ex-boyfriend because they break up.
Yeah.
But he comes over, he puts his hand out and says, "Look, sorry, I shouldn't have kissed her. It was even though he didn't know." So I still think he has like a reasonable out in that sense. But he puts his hand out and offers a hand up. It's sort of literally extending his hand, both and figuratively as well, of course. And the guy's like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." It's kind of like, because he's been knocked on his ass, he's kind of willing to, oh yeah, maybe I'll stop giving this guy a hard time. Maybe this should be it.
I think the core point is it makes him feel normal, even though he's using some enhancements. It makes him feel normal, just like one of the guys.
Yeah, and one of the running themes we've had with this show so far is like the danger of it going a certain way. That's the more mind-numbing generic teen drama, and it kind of pivoting in a way that we've appreciated. And I think this episode does have another example or two of that. The main one for me is that later on, so Jonathan at first is a little bit, wait, why are you doing this? And then when he's like, okay, so you've made your point and you've sort of stood up against the bullies and shown them that you're not to be messed with, so you're quitting now, right? There's a moment where he sees on his phone that the quarterback dude, the boyfriend or the ex-boyfriend character, he's like texting him saying, "Hey, this is how be defense plays," or something to that effect. And I thought from that moment, I was like, oh no. Like, even though there's kind of an irony of him getting jealous about him being on the football squad rather than having powers, because that was kind of the thing, like, surely he's going to be jealous he doesn't have superpowers, but no, he's jealous of the normal thing that he's going to end up doing. But
yeah,
I actually really appreciated that this immediately followed into him going to speak to Clark and saying, "Look, I know he shouldn't have signed up behind your back. I know there's a lot of concerns, but this is actually making him happy and he's making friends." Like I read it incorrectly, and I think you're supposed to read it incorrectly to a point. But when he goes to speak to Clark, it then turns into, no, my brother's actually finding like a steady sort of place to stand on here, and I'm going to stick up for him.
I also agree that you are supposed to read it in the cliche way, intentionally so, and it twists it pretty quick. It doesn't leave it there long, so it's fine. I do still suspect down the line we'll get some of him being jealous because he's no longer the football. He even says football's my thing, and maybe he'll just feel like at some point, well, what can he do then? I'm sure it'll still delve into that a little bit and how it's affecting him, but not necessarily in a terrible way, like this immediately just jealousy thing.
Yeah, I mean, you've said that like 3 episodes in a row, but it keeps pivoting every single time it almost does something like that. So, so I will say that I will give it a bit more benefit of the doubt.
No, I don't mean it negatively when I say that, though. When I say it will explore that down the line, I mean, I think it would be a good thing for, at some point, it to sit back and explore how this has long-term affected Jonathan as well. In ways that because at the minute it feels a lot more focused on Jordan because it's more directly on him.
Yeah, well, I think that ties back into the mental health issues, the idea of the people around the person with mental health issues and how it affects them, and the sacrifices they might have to make or what they have to do to be with that person. And that's something the show's been touching on, and something that this feels like it's setting up to do more with over time as we see more of it play out kind of in real time in the show. So that's neat. And in fact, one of the big things of this episode is that they think it's very amusing early on because they have this. There's a scene at the start of the episode where they're painting a room and they end up having like a fight where they're all play fight where they're all throwing paint on each other and whatnot. And Superman hears the bridge incident happening, so he speeds off, flies off to China, or I think it was. And little detail light here is that they're sort of standing in shock that he's had to speed away so quickly. Lois goes, "Oh yeah, we don't have to hide that anymore." But I like that she's clearly used to this because she just turns and starts putting paint on them again.
Immediately start.
So it sets up kind of like it almost goes against what her father was saying last episode about this having this like really big negative effect on her. Really, I don't know. This little paint moment in and of itself just kind of shows. Nah, she seems quite well adjusted, all things considered. But they think it's amazing when they're talking to him at breakfast about, so this super hearing and you hear everything all over the world, like how does it work, blah blah blah. They think it's hilarious, and they're asking about, do you ever hear anything dirty? They're asking questions like that. They're not equally amused though later on in the episode when Clark shows up randomly at school because he hears a tense moment with Jordan and we see his eyes are about to fire up, like he's getting upset.
He is tensing, yeah. So
Clark, while, yes, trust boundaries might have been broken a little bit here, he actually wasn't in the wrong in the sense that, the reason why he showed up was just, and we could see that there was a potential here. If he hadn't showed up and completely deflated the moment, because his presence just stopped it all, like everyone just stopped doing what they were doing, it could have led to something. So it becomes this conversation about not eavesdropping. We hear a little bit about how when Lois first found out he could listen to her at any point and how that kind of developed.
And I do think you say there that it could have very easily got out of hand very quickly from that point. So he was doing arguably the right thing showing up. I think that's why they're not too annoyed about it long term. Like they're obviously pissed in the moment and they're really, this abuse of privacy, and they're angry naturally. But the next morning, it's kind of forgotten about, and I think it's not that it's not important to them. I think it's more just they recognize, they probably did actually need him to step in that time.
Yeah, admitting they need help is maybe something they weren't ready to do, and they're probably too angry to even consider saying that out loud in the moment.
Yes.
But yeah, I think the situation kind of called for, because you see, Clark's on the farm and he starts to hear because he talks about early on how he's kind of tuned his own hearing to listen for distress. Like that's what he's listening for. He's not listening for any private conversation. He's just listening for.
I like how though at this point he looks bored. Like he's there to fixing up the tractor. He's like, and he's like, wonder if there's anything interesting happening. And then just starts, scrolling through the world to hear if there's anything happening.
Yeah, I kind of like how he described it, though. I thought the script here was, when he's describing it earlier on in the episode, and he talks about how, it's not really like I can hear everything at once. It's more like there's there's a sound that all the sounds together sound like normally. So when something deviates, that's when it sticks out and you can hear it, kind of thing.
Yeah, the description kind of made it feel like, on on an actual analog radio, where in between the channels it's just white noise static.
Yeah.
But as you twist the dial and you scroll through and you hit on there's something broadcasting on this frequency, suddenly it jumps to life all of a sudden. It kind of sounded like that, where it's all just this background noise until something jumps out.
Yeah, a couple of nice little moments I liked here. I like Clark when he ultimately does agree that Jordan should be allowed to play football if he wants to. He sort of worms his way into being the new assistant coach, which the actual coach is having none of until Lois points out that he's willing to work for free. And he's like, why didn't you open with that? Here, grab a cat. Get on the field.
It's goofy, but I'll allow it.
Yes, but the bit I liked, though, is a little bit later. It's just, there's a scene where the kids are talking to each other. Sarah's there, and him and Jordan and Sarah are having like a little moment, and it's clearly we're doing the will they won't they for a bit. Clark comes up, but I like that he's pretending to really be struggling with this barrel of water, and
he's like out of breath.
He's out of breath. But my favorite part of it is that once Sarah leaves, he's like, "Oh, let's just pretend that you need my help with this," and he starts overdoing it. So the scene ends with just this little bit of comedy where Clark's kind of like, my back," and John's like, "All right, too much, just."
Yeah. Honestly, some of my favorite moments in this episode are just the reactions, especially from the two kids. There are two moments in particular that I laughed out loud at.
One of my favorite moments last episode was them face palming with Lois in the town hall meeting. This episode, it's when Lana comes to grill out Sarah in the diner, and they're just sitting there awkwardly, like trying to look at anything, and just like, oh no.
There's a moment, I don't know what line it is specifically that Lana says, because Sarah's pushing it. She's like, you can say it here, and there's something she says, and the two of them just go ooh, and just like physically like flinch backwards in the seats.
This is a deeply personal conversation. We shouldn't be here for this. Sarah, what have you done? Why are you doing this in front of us? Please don't.
It's that reaction. And the other one that got me was it was when Jordan was annoyed at Clark for not letting him play football. And they were having the shouting match in the kitchen. And he says something along the lines of, you're never here anyway. Something to that effect. I can't remember the exact line.
No,
and he goes, I wish you weren't here, I think it was.
Yeah. No, the exact line was, I wish you'd go back to never being around, was the exact line of dialogue.
Yeah. And it's just Jonathan again in the background, because he's not doing anything in the scene. He's just sat on the table with him and Lois in the background, and it's just him pulling faces and reacting to like that line. It killed me. It's so funny, even in this quite actually well written argument.
Yeah, the kids are proving to be surprisingly good most of the time. It's not that they never fall into moments of teen drama stuff, but they always seem to swerve it back around to them still being quite likeable and understanding, and for the most part, in what they're doing. Do you know what I actually liked about Jonathan in this episode is obviously the bigger moments when he does come and stick up for Jordan. Says, no, he's enjoying this, he's making friends, I've never seen him be this happy. It feels like he's actually looking out for his brother, which is something we've been talking about for all 3 episodes. But even in this scene, when Jordan's told to go upstairs after this like outlash that he's had, or this lashing out he's had, you know what I mean? Right, when he goes upstairs, Jonathan sits there and starts almost trying to start the conversation about, okay, here's the, like he's one of the parents. He's like, all right, let's talk about him here, and then
he's like, for the record, I was on your side.
And then Clark, after a sense, is like, no, you go upstairs too. But for a moment, he's like trying to no, look, we're all adults here. Let's talk about Jordan and his well-being. Let's do this. But the funny thing is that even though he's sitting upstairs and effectively reminded that he's still one of the teenagers, his conduct for the rest of the episode kind of proves that, in a way, he's still kind of that to his brother. Partly because of that scene with Clark later on, where he says, no, look, I'm there when you're not. I see him every day. This is the happiest he's ever been. Maybe part of this is Clark realizing that Jonathan, because he's constantly complaining. One of the biggest things Clark keeps complaining about is that he never knows what's going through Jordan's head and what he's supposed to say. Jonathan's like he's mole. It's like he's ace in the hole. He's there on the front lines, and he sees things and he knows things, and he has insight that neither of the parents do.
And I appreciate that as well. That it's like there is a again, it goes back to there being a bond between the brothers. Jonathan doesn't just grass Jordan up immediately when they're talking about the football practice. I think it's right after the Lana scene with Sarah, and which again I laughed when. As Clark comes into the diner, he's like, "Oh, hi, Lana." She's like, "Not now, Clark," just completely brushing him off. But in that scene, that's where John's like, oh yeah, football practice was really good, and mentions that Jonathan did really well, but says nothing about his thing. And
actually,
and Jonathan keeps quiet, just like, yeah, it's his thing to share.
I was wondering this scene actually if Clark was pretending not to know, if he had been still listening. And I like that they gave us a scene later with Lana to prove that he didn't know, because he finds out from her, because she's just gossiping as, oh, I heard Jordan was really good in the football practice yesterday or something like that. And he's like, I think you mean Jonathan. No, it was definitely Jordan. He's the wonderkind.
That's because up to this point we've had a few scenes of Jonathan being like, Jordan, he's gonna find out, and he's gonna rip you a new one. It's like, and that's on you. He's like, it'll be fine.
But I do think, for the sake of Clark not becoming kind of a villain, not in a traditional sense, but just in the sense that he's kind of always the grumpy parent, him being a man of his word and actually not listening after he said he wouldn't, is them proving that to us is a really good thing, I think, for just maintaining who he is on the show.
Yeah.
But like I say though, and Jonathan as well, when he does like come to talk to Clark, he admits, like, I should have told you, I realised that I should have this, because there are reasons to be, skeptical and scared of what may happen. But, and then that's when he sort of makes his argument. But I like how they're playing it. I like how they're playing it so far.
Do you remember when, like, Smallville stretched this exact plot over about an entire season?
And it was just Clark whining to Jonathan that he wants to play football.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yes, I do vaguely recall that being season 1 of the show. Actually, just on Lana, since we mentioned Lana and Sarah, they have a couple of scenes. I was a little confused as to why Lana, who works she's got a full-time job at the bank, why she's the one who's coaching the cheerleaders, but I guess small town volunteer, yeah. I never got the impression that cheerleading coaches were also that, but fair enough. But
I think in, like, big areas that they're not. Like, if you go back to, the school they were in Metropolis, it's definitely a professional.
Yeah.
But I think at this level, it's just, in the same way that, Clark can just kind of, all right, I'll be an assistant coach. In the same level, like, I think that's kind of what the cheerleading is kind of at. I guess.
It was just one of those things where this feels a bit convenient, so we could have this scene with, the dramatic ending, which is Sarah quitting cheerleading. It's actually kind of about, and I guess this is just maybe like a regional thing, maybe the Midwest specifically in this case is who says this. But Lana kept saying, you can quit, okay, if you want to quit cheer, you can. She quit cheer. What? Stop calling it just cheer. It was annoying. Cheerleading.
No, I know. I don't think this is a regional thing. I've seen this in a lot of American teen stuff. Okay. Yeah. They all call it that.
Well, it's become a pet peeve of mine after this episode. I don't like it.
So you've got cheer. Mine is the call it something the other day when it was yesterday.
I mean, I don't necessarily like that. I've just heard it enough that I just know it's not a mistake, which was the point of that conversation.
No, which I'm fine acknowledging it's not a mistake, but it has become a pet peeve immediately.
I mean, nothing's worse than
I hate it.
Nothing's worse than I could care less. That is the one I hate with a fiery passion. But
yeah, don't get me started on that one.
But
the very definition.
So yeah, and they have a heart to heart. Basically, Alana's worried about her. She's Sarah's going to therapy, but she's worried about her taking pills the previous year, and Sarah talking about becoming trapped. And there's kind of like a moment where she realizes that her own daughter was worried about turning into her. Like, she's not left the town, that she's kind of trapped in this marriage, which doesn't seem very happy. Apparently, the character we don't like, he's sleeping on the couch.
Kyle,
there you
he's
go.
a Kyle.
He's sleeping on the couch.
I was thinking back to our conversation last time.
He doesn't have too much in this episode, thankfully. So.
Oh yeah. He's got like 2 scenes, I think. One at the start in the car, and then one that's a reaction to another event we'll get to.
Oh, he's also got a scene where he's at the dinner table and he's watching TV.
Oh, yeah, okay. I don't think he has any lines really there, does he?
There's an irony to it, because Lana's saying, Sarah, sit down and eat with your family, whilst the father of the family is paying attention to the TV. He's technically at the table, but his chair's kind of turned and he's not really... So the visual, it's a bit in your face, but it's quite clear. Lana's trying to maintain some kind of idea of a family, but the husband's already checked out of said family. So...
Yeah. Yeah, I think we already knew he was sleeping on the couch. I think we learned that in the first episode.
I didn't mention.
I think that was something that Sarah said to Jordan in one of those conversations.
No,
but it was again, it coming out here.
I think it. No, maybe you're right. No, I was thinking of the joke the little kid made, but I think that was about him just being mad at her, not sleeping on the couch. But yeah,
Yeah, but it came out here in the diner again. She just shouted it in front of everyone, and everyone started looking awkward.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other plot with Lois, because there's no Lex stuff this episode or Sam Lane. That stuff's on ice for an episode. But Lois is trying to find, and this was so there's a moment, right? So they meet this character, this mother of someone from the previous town that Morgan Edge did all this like mining stuff in, but there was like some mysterious extra jobs that he roped some people into, and this one particular guy went missing. So the mother of this young man who went missing, getting this job, comes to Lois, says, "Hey, I hear you've been calling people around our town looking for, people to talk about Morgan Edge and what happened, blah blah." And she tells this story. She lets him hear this recording of her son, who sounds like he knows he's going to die, because he was like, "I want you to know I love you, Mum," kind of thing. And there's like some mysterious character watching this from like across the street. He's got like the camera up, and he's watching through the window, and it's kind of obviously later on everyone's in danger from it. But so Lois goes to technically her boss, right? This one woman who runs this little gazette, and she's like, "Hey, there's something going on here. There's something fishy. I have to look into this and see if at least there's something. See if there's more to this." And this woman says, "Lois, we're a small gazette. We do fluff pieces," and she's like arguing that this is nothing. There's probably another explanation for this. And I'm like, you're a tiny one-person newspaper from a small town, and a Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative journalist has offered to come and work for you. Why aren't you listening to her when she says she's sniffing a story? Listen to her. Like,
just publish whatever she does. Just let her do her thing.
She clearly, she's made a career. She's a famous reporter. People know who she is.
Like, the thing is, I'm not saying she wasn't struggling before, like doing all the jobs on her own. But she was doing them all and putting out her little puff pieces. Why does she just go, "All right, I'll carry on doing this, Lois, you do your thing, and you bring in the big bucks," essentially?
This is like if I said I'm going to do a little short film, and like Christopher Nolan showed up on set, and I started saying, "Hey, if I want your input, Chris, I'd ask for it. You just stand there and hold the boom mic, all right?" That's essentially what this conversation was. It was, I thought it was so stupid.
To be fair, I would do that to Christopher Nolan just for shits and gigs.
Just for the funny.
Yeah.
I'd make him operate the camera, but I'd swap the camera with an iPhone just so you had to film something with an iPhone to see the look of his
that's
face.
cruel.
And I love Nolan's movies, for the record. Like I'm a big fan, but I do think that would be funny.
That would be cruel as well.
But yes, so basically this guy tries to kill this mother. Lois goes to meet her. In fact, this is actually part of the scene.
But just to before we get to that, her car is blown up.
Oh, true, yes. There's a scene in the middle where they come out of the newspaper office, and presumably this guy has set fire to Lois's car, which actually leads to one of my little joke that I liked when she's taking Clark's truck, and he's like, "Hey, you going to bring it back?" And she's like, 50-50.
I like as well when she's like, "Should I back off from this?" And Clark's like, "You've had cars blown up before."
I think the line I liked was, "It's not your first Molotov cocktail," was one of the lines he said.
I think that was the exact line.
Which gave me a chuckle. Okay, but I need to talk about something here. So she arrives at this motel, which is where this woman's staying, and she's going to speak to her. I don't know why this happened or what choices were made that led to this, but for some reason, it's like she drove into Silent Hill. There's a fog, and there's this like sort of noise in the soundtrack, or maybe it's like a ship's like horn in the distance, but it was giving me this eerie Silent Hill feel, and I'm like, why is this so surreally atmospheric all of a sudden? Like, I get that it's maybe tense because maybe there's some danger, but this was very specifically like existential dread I was feeling during this like quick 30-second arrival to the scene.
Yeah, I can't argue with any of that.
I must say I didn't like it. It was just oddly
there's an
specific.
argument that it's potentially distractingly over the top.
Yes.
I'm also not ruling out that it's an intentional in-universe explanation as of right now, given that there are powered individuals involved.
Well, that's the big thing, is this guy turns out to have, because obviously this guy attacks Lois. He's already tried to kill the woman, who turns out she's not quite dead yet. She must have interrupted him as he was strangling her. But she fights back a little bit by sticking a pen in his ear, and I thought it was a little bit funny actually that the pen sort of stays in his ear for like a minute before he pulls it out.
It's a little bit, yeah.
Bit of a visual. I guess that's maybe your first sign that he's got some powers, because he doesn't really seem to react to the fact that he's been stabbed in the ear with a pen.
He doesn't, but at that point I was still thinking, he's just hopped up on adrenaline. He's on a mad one.
Yeah, but then she, hits the button. Superman dives out of the scene immediately.
What did the guy think it was? Because she pulls out the device that that they all have to signal him, and he goes, "Oh, that's not going to help you."
I'm assuming he thought it was a taser or something like that.
Maybe, yeah. Because it doesn't look like anything I could think of. And I'm like, what does he think it is that he's like, oh, that's not going to help? Yeah, maybe.
Maybe maybe he actually thinks this is technically what it is, which is a call for help button. But he's thinking, I'll alert the authorities. Who'll take 10 minutes to get here.
The closest thing I think of it looks like a detonator of some sort. But
yeah,
it's like, well, that doesn't make any sense.
That said, though, given that he's got superpowers, maybe he legitimately thinks, that won't help you. If you've got explosives here, that won't help you.
More just, it doesn't make any sense because she couldn't have planted explosives there beforehand.
True. But anyway, Superman shows up, and puts him through a wall. But the guy gets up and sort of holds his, when he tries to punch him, he holds Superman's arms. It's like, oh, he's got super strength. Shit. So it's a bit of a fight. But Superman, of course, after getting knocked down for a bit, he gets back up again. Everyone to keep him down. He floats there for
every time.
He floats for a bit, and he uses his super speed. He uses his freeze breath. There's a cool.
I actually really like this sequence because he freezes him and then shatters the ice and just.
But
is whacking him back and forth in midair.
Notably, you say he shatters the ice. He does it with an uppercut. It's very Sub-Zero because he's frozen a la one of the victims in Batman and Robin from Mr. Freeze's gun. That's what it looks like. And then he uppercuts him, and we see a slow motion shot of all the ice coming off of him. Because part of me was thinking, wait, is he going to shatter his whole body? That's a bit dark for Superman.
I thought that for a second as well.
But just the ice. It's just the ice that shatters. The person outside is still fine.
I buy it. The person hasn't frozen that much yet. Just there's a layer of ice around the person. It hasn't had time to freeze him down.
If anything, this is probably more scientifically accurate that he wouldn't shatter.
I believe it's theoretically possible to shatter a human if you got them cold enough.
Probably. But he's only used his freeze breath for 5 seconds. It's not been
exactly.
it's not been that much. So. Yes, and there's a sort of stinger at the end where this guy is killed by another superpowered being, notably with heat vision. Now, is this woman who kills him and is presumably working for Morgan Edge, is she Kryptonian? Is she maybe a Daxamite? Is she... Oh, actually, Daxamites don't usually have heat vision, do they?
Not usually,
no.
I would more likely speculate, because it seems like they know each other at the end here. They're part of the same project, perhaps. I wonder if they've got some of Clark's DNA and they've kind of
experiment
each different powers that they've extracted from it on different individuals.
Yeah,
kind of a almost a precursor to Superboy.
Yeah, some experimentation.
Yeah, I could be completely off the mark there, but it's an idea.
Yeah. No, I mean it's as good a guess as any right now, and that's basically your stinger. And this obviously proves to the woman running the Gazette that there's a story here. Oh, no shit.
She's got a murder board out.
She's got the murder board out. She got some CCTV footage of the guy in the car, so they've got his face.
I appreciate that she had gone and actually done some of her own journalism as well to show that she isn't completely useless. She was ignoring the story up to this point, but once she's on board with it, she's actually gone and done extra stuff. Because Lois like, where did you get this picture from? So I went and spoke to the gas station. So she's gone and done something. It's not like she's just relying on Lois entirely, which I do like that it makes her a little bit more of a journalist instead of just random woman.
But it's also not over the top in the sense that these are all sort of believable good things she could have went and done.
Yes, absolutely.
It's not like it's not going to be this Deus Ex Machina thing where Lois walks in and she's like, I have a source in Kandak who told me about you don't have sources. You're not someone with sources.
Your source is Irene down in the flower shop.
Exactly. So that was that. It's funny because I do think this might be in some ways the least exciting episode of the 3.
By its nature, I think that's probably true. I
mean, I even talk about the bridge saving sequence at the start. It's fun. It's good. I particularly liked the ending with Superman smiling at the man in the boat who thought he was about to be crushed by the bridge that's falling down, because obviously he catches it. But I especially like that he goes to wave and smile at him, and then he realizes he's still got paint in his hand from the paint fight before. Neat little moment.
Obviously, I thought the effects look noticeably lesser than they did in the first couple episodes. More on par of what I expect from CW here. Not terrible by any means, like an acceptable standard. That's
I can live with it.
not amazing though. I like that they at least still had I don't know what exact language he was speaking, but it wasn't English, right? And that's the point. Whatever Chinese language he was speaking, it was there. This idea that a lot of these shows will just have people speaking English for no reason. Right?
Yeah. No, so that was good. But I think, especially after talking about particularly what they're doing with the kids and the drama there that is shockingly working and making sense. Because when we've talked about CW superhero shows in the past, like, we get very frustrated and we talk about how frustrating the characters are because they just go around in circles, because they don't really have arcs to go from A to B. They just kind of start deciding to be annoyed about things, and there's 100 different probably problems that I could bring up from those shows to talk about how the character rate doesn't work.
Only 100.
But I'm noticing that when we're talking about the characters in this, particularly the teenagers, I feel like we're discussing it more in the same way. And that's not to say it's up to the quality of something like this, but we are discussing it in the same way that we tackle characters on something like Better Call Saul, where we're talking about their motivations and how their relationships are feeding off one another, and how it's leading to the next logical place their character's going, which is something we could never do with a lot of those other CW shows, because they wouldn't be following any kind of logic or rules with the characters. They'd just do things.
Right. There's of course always the chance that it will end up going around in circles with just time. But I mean, I don't think we've ever given this amount of depth on characters on any of the CW shows, even when they were fresh. I can't think of anything.
I don't think so.
Like we spoke about the first, or some of the first season of Batwoman, right? When that was a brand new show. I mean, that was within 2 or 3 episodes. Things were going in circles, or like you say, your characters were just making choices that seemed illogical.
Yeah, and there was also just characters that were not working already. And to be fair, sure, we don't like Kyle on this, but Kyle's a relatively minor part. He's not having that much of an impact on the rest of the show.
And at least he's supposed to be unlikable.
I mean,
we're not supposed to like Kyle.
That's true. He's a dick. Kyle's a dick.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's the point.
Yeah. So I am impressed thus far with how much we're actually able to talk about the character drama and talk about it because it's working, and talk about what they're doing with the characters, because we just couldn't do that with the other shows. I mean, Stargirl did have some of that with, I think, not been so much with the kids, but with Courtney and Pat. Like, Courtney and Pat had a good relationship, but obviously that wasn't a CW show technically yet. It was on CW too, but it started somewhere else. So we'll see. It'd be very interesting to see when we hit season 2 of that, if that can maintain that and that. So
I agree. I think there's a lot of parallels though with the way we spoke about Courtney and Pat, and here with Jordan and John.
Yes.
And maybe this means I don't have to write off everything the CW does immediately. Maybe this Powerpuff Girls show will not be atrocious.
That was a weird thing to bring up just randomly.
There was casting news for it like yesterday.
Yeah, I saw it, and it just made me upset because it means that Chloe Bennett probably won't be in more Marvel things that much anytime soon. So it's unfortunate.
I'm okay with that if Powerpuff Girls is half as funny as it should be.
I never saw Powerpuff Girls growing up, so I have no attachment, and therefore I don't care about this new show. I'm sorry, I just don't. But hey, yeah. So far so good. Not perfect still, of course. Like, I wouldn't say that I am super intrigued by the actual Morgan Edge plot on its own. A bit more so, I am interested in the Lex Luthor plot, but even that's not perfect. Like, I don't think it's like a super exciting plot in the way that I think other, better written shows will have like really enticing plots where I'm hanging on the edge of my seat theorizing about where it's going.
I think a lot of it we're just excited or interested in it on its nature of multiversal Lex. There's a history, and there's enough in the premise that's interesting, but I don't think it's actually done anything.
Yeah, but the point I'm making is though it's the character drama that's making it work. And the funny thing is that when it comes to TV, if only one of them is going to work, I will always pick the character drama over the plot.
Yeah, every time.
Obviously, it's great if you get both. It doesn't say that the plot's bad per se, although it's not particularly good.
It's fine. It's serviceable.
Yeah, so far we had generic villain man attack Lois, and there's another super powered villain.
But I think because even if like this, just to focus on the Morgan Edge side of things, it's a very kind of, like I say, it's a bland, typical plot. Really, it's fine. Nothing really bad about it, but there's nothing good about it. But I'm enjoying watching Lois tackle it still, and that's what matters.
Yeah. So there you go. That's episode 3 of Lois. It's episode 3 of Superman and Lois. So easy. It's so easy to just
see how long it takes you to stop making that mistake.
They should have called this Superman and Lois: The New Adventures of Clark Kent, just to properly flip the entire name on its head. So, yes, let us know what you thought of this episode in the comments below. Please do like and subscribe and all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. You can support us, of course, as well over at patreon.com/mailfuzztv for as little as $1 per month and keep all the content coming. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?